In the 2002 National Electrical Code, running boards are not explicitly required for wiring installed in crawl spaces. However, running boards or other approved means of support are required for wiring installed under floors specifically outlined in National Electrical Code Section 334.30. Given that the wiring is installed underneath the house, it could be interpreted as being under the floor. However, because the wiring is secured to the rafters, it is arguably not strictly under the floor. To ensure compliance with local regulations and interpretations of the code, it is recommended to consult with a local electrical inspector or the authority having jurisdiction, also known as the AHJ. They can provide specific guidance based on their interpretation of the code and local practices. The 2002 National Electrical Code does not have specific requirements for the moisture resistance of wiring installed in crawl spaces. However, it is generally good practice to use wiring that is rated for exposure to moisture and mildew, especially in areas where such conditions are prevalent. It's prudent to select wiring suitable for damp environments. Wire with a moisture-resistant jacket, such as THHN or XHHN, is a good choice for use in crawl spaces. These types of wire are designed to withstand moisture and provide better protection against corrosion and other damage caused by moisture. It is important to properly secure the wiring to the rafters or other approved means of support. When selecting wiring for crawl spaces, several factors beyond code compliance should be considered to ensure a safe and durable electrical installation. Firstly, the type of insulation plays a crucial role in withstanding the environmental conditions prevalent in crawl spaces. THHN and XHHN wires are commonly recommended due to their moisture resistance and ability to operate safely within a wide temperature range. DHHN, which stands for thermoplastic high heat resistant nylon, is suitable for dry and damp locations and has a heat resistance rating of up to 90 degrees Celsius or 194 degrees Fahrenheit in dry locations and 75 degrees Celsius or 167 degrees Fahrenheit in wet locations. XHHN, which stands for cross-linked polyethylene high heat resistant nylon, offers even greater heat resistance and is also suitable for wet and dry locations. Its cross-linked polyethylene insulation provides excellent resistance to abrasion, chemicals, and oil, making it a robust choice for potentially harsh crawl space environments. Secondly, consider the potential for physical damage to the wiring. Crawl spaces are often confined and may be subject to pests, rodents, or accidental impacts. To mitigate these risks, it is advisable to use wiring methods that offer physical protection. For instance, running individual wires through conduit, such as electrical metallic tubing or ENT, provides a rigid barrier against physical damage. Alternatively, armored cable, also known as AC cable or BX cable, encases the conductors in a flexible metal jacket, offering significant protection while maintaining flexibility for installation. Thirdly, proper support and securing of the wiring are essential to prevent strain on the conductors and ensure long-term reliability. National Electrical Code Section 334.30, although primarily addressing wiring under floors, provides valuable guidance applicable to crawl spaces. It mandates that cables be secured by staples, cable ties, straps, or similar fittings designed and installed in a manner that does not damage the cable. The spacing between supports should be sufficient to prevent sagging or drooping of the cables, typically every 4.5 feet or 1.4 meters for horizontal runs and every 12 inches or 30 centimeters for vertical runs. When securing cables to rafters or joists, ensure that the fasteners are appropriate for the material and that they do not compress or penetrate the cable insulation. Fourthly, grounding and bonding are critical for electrical safety. Ensure that all metallic enclosures, such as junction boxes and equipment housings, are properly grounded to provide a low impedance path for fault currents. This helps to minimize the risk of electric shock and facilitates the operation of overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses. Grounding should comply with National Electrical Code Article 250, which outlines the requirements for grounding and bonding electrical systems. Fifthly, consider the potential for future modifications or additions to the electrical system. Installing extra conduit or leaving spare capacity in junction boxes can simplify future wiring projects and avoid the need for extensive rework. Planning for future needs can save time and money in the long run. Finally, it is always advisable to create a wiring diagram or map of the electrical system in the crawl space. This diagram should accurately depict the location of cables, junction boxes, and other electrical components. A wiring diagram can be invaluable for troubleshooting electrical issues or making future modifications. Remember to keep the wiring diagram in a safe and accessible location, such as near the main electrical panel. In summary, when wiring a crawl space, select moisture-resistant wiring, provide physical protection, ensure proper support and securing, implement robust grounding and bonding, plan for future needs, and create a comprehensive wiring diagram. Consulting with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector is highly recommended to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. They can provide valuable insights and guidance based on local practices and conditions. National Electrical Code Article 300 addresses wiring methods and materials, and it contains several provisions relevant to crawl-space wiring. Firstly, National Electrical Code Section 300.4 addresses protection against physical damage. It requires that wiring be protected from physical damage where subject to it. In crawl spaces, this may involve using conduit, armored cable, or other suitable means of protection. Secondly, National Electrical Code Section 300.11 addresses securing and supporting wiring. It requires that wiring be securely fastened in place and supported at appropriate intervals. This helps to prevent strain on the conductors and ensures the long-term reliability of the electrical system. Thirdly, National Electrical Code Section 300.15 addresses boxes, conduit bodies, and fittings where conductors are spliced or terminated. It requires that these enclosures be properly installed and accessible for maintenance and inspection. In crawl spaces, it is important to use enclosures that are suitable for damp locations to prevent corrosion and moisture damage. Fourthly, National Electrical Code Section 300.22 addresses wiring in ducts, plenums, and other spaces used for environmental air. It restricts the types of wiring methods that can be used in these spaces to minimize the risk of fire and smoke propagation. While crawl spaces are not typically used for environmental air, it is important to be aware of these requirements if the crawl space is connected to the building's ventilation system. Fifthly, National Electrical Code Article 310 addresses conductors for general wiring. It specifies the types of conductors that are permitted for use in various applications, including crawl spaces. It also specifies the ampacity, or current carrying capacity, of conductors based on their size, insulation type, and installation conditions. When selecting conductors for crawl space wiring, it is important to choose conductors that are rated for the expected voltage and current levels, as well as the environmental conditions. Sixthly, National Electrical Code Article 314 addresses outlet boxes, device boxes, and conduit bodies. It specifies the requirements for the size, construction, and installation of these enclosures. In crawl spaces, it is important to use boxes and conduit bodies that are suitable for damp locations and that provide adequate protection for the conductors and connections. Seventhly, National Electrical Code Article 320 addresses armored cable or Type AC. It specifies the requirements for the construction, installation, and use of armored cable. Armored cable is a popular wiring method for crawl spaces because it provides good physical protection for the conductors. Eighthly, National Electrical Code Article 330 addresses metal-clad cable or Type MC. It specifies the requirements for the construction, installation, and use of metal-clad cable. Metal-clad cable is similar to armored cable, but it has a corrugated metal jacket that provides even greater physical protection. Ninthly, National Electrical Code Article 334 addresses non-metallic sheet cable or types NM, NMC, and NMS. It specifies the requirements for the construction, installation, and use of non-metallic sheath cable. Non-metallic sheath cable is a common wiring method for residential applications, but it is not recommended for use in crawl spaces unless it is specifically rated for damp locations. Tenthly, National Electrical Code Article 394 addresses concealed knob and tube wiring. It specifies the requirements for the installation and use of knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube wiring is an older wiring method that is rarely used in new construction, but it may be found in older homes. If knob and tube wiring is present in a crawl space, it should be inspected by a qualified electrician to ensure that it is safe and in good condition. When working in crawl spaces, it is important to take precautions to protect yourself from electrical shock. Always turn off the power to the circuit before working on any electrical equipment. Use insulated tools and wear rubber gloves and shoes to protect yourself from contact with energized parts. Avoid working in wet or damp conditions and be careful not to damage any wiring or equipment. If you are not comfortable working on electrical equipment, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work. They have the training and experience to safely and effectively install and maintain electrical systems. Remember to consult with the local electrical inspector or authority having jurisdiction to ensure that the wiring installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. They can provide valuable guidance and help to ensure that the electrical system is safe and reliable. Additionally, consider the long-term maintenance and inspection of the wiring in the crawl space. Regularly inspect the wiring for signs of damage such as cracked or brittle insulation, loose connections, or corrosion. Address any issues promptly to prevent further damage and ensure the continued safety of the electrical system. Keep the crawl space clean and dry to minimize the risk of moisture damage and pest infestations. Consider installing a vapor barrier to reduce moisture levels in the crawl space. This can help to protect the wiring and other building materials from moisture damage. Ensure that the crawl space is adequately ventilated to prevent the buildup of moisture and humidity. This can help to reduce the risk of mold and mildew growth. When making any modifications or additions to the electrical system in the crawl space, be sure to obtain the necessary permits and follow all applicable codes and regulations. This will help to ensure that the work is done safely and correctly. Keep accurate records of all electrical work performed in the crawl space, including wiring diagrams, inspection reports, and permit documentation. This information can be valuable for future maintenance and troubleshooting. In addition to the above considerations, it is important to be aware of the potential for environmental hazards in crawl spaces, such as asbestos, lead paint, and mold. If you suspect that any of these hazards may be present, it is important to take appropriate precautions to protect yourself and others. Consult with a qualified professional to assess the risks and develop a plan for safely addressing any hazards. Remember that electrical safety is paramount. Always prioritize safety when working with electricity, and do not hesitate to seek professional help if you are unsure about any aspect of the wiring installation or maintenance. By following these guidelines and consulting with qualified professionals, you can ensure that the wiring in your crawl space is safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. Always remember to prioritize safety and consult with qualified professionals when working with electricity. They can provide valuable guidance and help to ensure that the electrical system is safe and reliable.